All right, let's get right into it. I have my caffeinated water. It's a little packet I got from Aldi's. It was like $1 for 10 sticks. Put it in there, you get 60 milligrams of caffeine. You get some water in there. I've also got some Zen. Let's get into it. The big news hit yesterday, June 24th. Well, today as I'm filming it, Trump posted on social media claiming he'd pulled off a complete and total ceasefire between Israel and Iran, ending what he called a 12-day war. He laid this out step by step like it was a plan. Iran stops its attacks first. Israel follows 12 hours later. Why did they get a 12-hour window to continue bombing and airstrikes? I don't know, but that was the plan. And then 24 hours after that, it's all supposed to be over. Trump was hyping it up, saying this would save the Middle East from a bigger disaster, and he was giving props to both sides for being tough and smart enough to agree. Sounded like a big win. Magatards were going crazy. Plan trusters equals vindicated. That's what they were all saying on X. If you didn't trust Trump, then you're a traitor. You're not a loyalist. I think all that's kind of weird. You have to be loyal to Trump. You have to be. It's like it's okay to call someone out if they do something wrong. But anyways, things went south like they always do. You know, nothing ever happened. Bros were absolutely coping. Just hours. Probably actually I was on X watching all of this. People say it was hours, but I think it was like 20 minutes after the ceasefire was supposed to kick in. All my intel pages on X were blowing up. They're saying Iran was bombing Israel. So Iran actually violated it first. I know I'm very critical of Israel, but Iran did violate it first. And then before that, though, they were probably retaliating because before the ceasefire was supposed to go into effect, like 2 hours, it was supposed to go into effect, Israel unleashed some of its heaviest airstrikes yet on Tehran. The Iranian media said the strikes hit government buildings, military sites, and even took out a nuclear scientist. Along with the scientist's family. So, they're all dead. You were seeing reports of Mossad agents getting a hold of the IRGC, which is the Iranian Republican National Guard. They were getting a hold of them via their phone numbers and going to their houses and putting handwritten notes underneath their doors saying stuff like, hey, if you don't turn on your government right now, we know where you live. We'll kill you and your whole entire family. So, yeah, it was getting pretty crazy. But the Israeli Air Force, they dropped over 100 bombs all over Tehran. They were targeting missile launchers in western Iran, like anti-air defense artillery. So what that is, basically, if you don't know, is if someone shoots a missile at you, this missile, air defense artillery, will shoot a missile at the missile, and it'll blow it up in the air. I've seen these in real life. It's pretty cool to watch this stuff. I'm not going to lie. Not to make light of the people killing each other, regardless of who they are or where they're from. But yeah, those things are absolutely insane. The tech behind them is crazy. But anyways, Israel said this was part of the plan. We wanted to do this. They acknowledged it. But Iran didn't just sit there and take it, even though a ceasefire was going to be in effect. They launched missiles right back. Like I said before, this is going to be retaliation after retaliation after retaliation. And they aimed at a lot of Israeli cities. Don't know which ones. It was pretty much all over Israel. They hit an apartment building in this town called Beersheba. Just families were living there. Both sides are both trying to really hammer it home. So, yeah, Iran violated the ceasefire after that. I believe they shot 1 or 2 missiles over. That was it. But technically, that is a violation. And Israel said they're going to strike fast, extremely hard. So, yeah, both sides are pointing fingers at each other, with Israel saying Iran shot off 2 ballistic missiles and Iran saying that Israel kept bombing after the deal was on. But anyways, people on X, when this was all happening, I was very closely paying attention. They were trying to make sense of this. Follow lots of intel pages, and then you read also the official media from all sides, the Israeli news, the Iranian news, the American news, whatever. So nobody could tell if this ceasefire was even real, was the crazy part. People were posting left and right, wondering if either country actually agreed to it or if it was just Trump talking big. Like he was like in his teenage white girl era where he's trying to manifest it or something. Who knows? Reports trickled out that Iran didn't even mention the ceasefire until after it was supposedly in place. And Israel's government said something vague around the same time, but they kept their jets in the air. The whole thing felt kind of weird, and everybody was just saying, like, what's even going on? Why are people still bombing each other? Why are planes still taking off? So anyways, why did the ceasefire crash and burn? I'll tell you why. If you watch my other two videos, you can see I explain this. The whole goal of Israel with Iran here is regime change. So regime change is, in other words, it's toppling Iran's government and wiping out its nuclear program. That nuclear stuff is Iran's deterrent from being taken over. It's their only real way to keep enemies at bay. A ceasefire doesn't get Israel closer to those goals. It just puts it on pause. So this doesn't meet Israel's goals. So why would they agree to a ceasefire? They're already in the war. The U.S. has already bombed them. Israel's already bombed them. Netanyahu's been crystal clear that nothing short of destroying Iran's nuclear sites will do. And the strikes hurt those places, but sure, a lot of U.S. intelligence reports were saying that it only set their programs back a few months. And people are even saying that Iran moved their stuff out, like the uranium, out of the site at Fordo before the strikes even happened. They might have had prior knowledge that it was going to happen. And I mean, it makes sense. The writing's on the wall. I've been telling you guys this for quite some time now. I already posted that video, 2 videos about this. So, and who was Trump even talking to for this ceasefire deal, though? Nobody's even sure. He made it sound like he had Netanyahu and maybe some Iranian officials on board, with Qatar playing the middleman, but neither country gave a straight answer. No, they didn't really acknowledge it. They kept bombing each other anyway. So people don't know, but apparently the rumors are going around that Trump called Netanyahu to like stop the bombings, and Qatar tried to sweet talk Iran, but it's hard to believe anyone was serious about stopping when missiles were still flying. Like I said in my last videos, and I'm reiterating again, this doesn't meet Israel's goals. Israel is not done. Iran's not backing down. Their backs are against the wall. They don't want to see what happened to their neighbors happen to them. Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, all those countries fell. Lebanon gave up their nuclear program, then the country completely dissolved. Syria kept getting bombed, and Bashar al-Assad's not in power anymore. Iraq, that was 2003. Saddam Hussein is long gone. They were saying they had weapons of mass destruction, but they didn't. Anyways, Iran's still fighting back, even after losing a lot of commanders, high-profile military members, scientists. They're still fighting back. They have to. Their backs are against the wall. This isn't going to end. So the whole thing's a mess because basically both sides are dug in deep. And Trump seems to want to play diplomat, which is different from the war hawks around him and in Israel. Early on, he was pushing for talks to limit Iran's nuclear ambitions, even getting on the phone with Iran's foreign minister through back channels. But then Israel hit Iran on June 13th, and the U.S. dropped bombs on their nuclear sites on June 21st with B-2 bombers, huge bunker busters, and Tomahawk missiles. Trump bragged that those strikes obliterated Iran's nuclear program, but U.S. intel says that it wasn't that bad. It was more like a temporary setback. So Iran's feeling the heat now. Their neighbors like Iraq, Lebanon, Syria have all been flipped or weakened by regime changes. So Iran's pretty much alone. Their nuclear program is their last big defense, and they're not going to give it up because once that goes, regime change is going to be a lot easier for everybody else. Assassination attempts, who knows? The U.S. and Israeli strikes just make them double down on this, to be quite honest. Trump said he doesn't want regime change in Iran, which he mentioned on the Air Force One on June 24th. But that puts him at odds with Israel's plans, making this whole situation even trickier. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. What's pushing U.S. policy here? Why is the U.S. so intertwined? I said intertwined. That's funny. Anyways, some say Trump's tied up by big money from pro-Israel donors, which isn't new in Washington. Then there's this theory about the Epstein files. Jeffrey Epstein, the guy with the island, where he was touching a bunch of little kids. Rumor has it that those files have dirt on a ton of U.S. politicians, and some people think Israel has the files. That's why Pam Bondi, the attorney general, hasn't actually dropped them, or Kash Patel, the FBI director, because Epstein might have been linked to Mossad, their spy agency. I'm not saying that's totally true because we don't know, but because apparently he killed himself, so no one's going to actually be able to question him. But it's out there. It's worth mentioning just to keep all angles in view. the U.S. might be doing Israel's bidding due to Epstein blackmail, and also all the politicians are bought out anyways because people sold their soul for $1 million or something like that. So take it with a grain of salt. The Epstein part, not the money. The money thing is true. You can look it up. Anyways, reports are coming out saying that there's no radiation spikes from the nuclear sites as well that were bombed by the B-2 bombers. So this also doesn't align with Israel's goal of destroying Iran's nuclear capability. So the ceasefire was just never meant to last. It was a complete bust. Israel and Iran kept fighting, and it's clear that the deal was shaky from the start. Israel's not going to stop until Iran's government is gone or replaced and its nukes are gone. And Iran's hitting back to show that they're just not going to roll over. So Trump's diplomacy got steamrolled by how messy this all is and the fact that Israel and Iran want different things. And as of this morning, actually, around 8 a.m. of June 24th, Trump was very not happy. He's livid. He straight up says he's absolutely pissed and that both countries don't know what the fuck they're doing. He said that on camera. I thought it was pretty crazy. It's raw frustration talking from him, and you can tell he's fed up with the ceasefire falling apart and both sides continuing to just escalate. The donor money, the Epstein rumors add fuel to the fire. Although the Epstein rumors aren't proven, people think this is why we're involved in it anyways. Meanwhile, NATO and the EU are begging for a ceasefire as well, but good luck with that because they don't care. So that's where we're at. The Israel-Iran fight is still a powder keg that's waiting for a massive explosion, and the ceasefire didn't do anything to cool it down. It's a tough spot, and yeah, we're just going to keep watching, monitoring. I'm going to keep posting videos and keeping you all up to date on this stuff. It seems like you guys like to hear the politics stuff, so I will keep making videos on that. So thanks for sticking with me, guys. That's really all I've got to say for this. Just a quick update. If you want to support my work, I've got Bitcoin donations as well as a Patreon. It really helps me out a lot. I'm not going to be the guy that sits there and begs for your money. So that's all I'm going to say about that. With all that out the way, Jimmy talks out.